Hi, good evening to everybody. I wish a very happy new year, a prosperous year for you, for the forthcoming year also to come. So I'm Ilangovan, Axi.com online person for teaching zoology. So last class we started something about the proteins, and also I concluded with the unit of proteins, the building blocks of proteins, what we call this one the amino acids. So the amino acids are considered as the building blocks, the unit of proteins, and each amino acid is considered as alpha amino acid because we have the carboxyl group, a free carboxyl group, a free amino group, normally attached to the alpha carbon atom. Hence, all amino acids are called alpha amino acids. Now, these amino acids are considered as substituted methanes. There are four substituent groups occupying the four valency of the carbon atoms. See that one. Suppose you are taking, for example, the simplest amino acid. I am taking glycine amino acid. The structure being so these are all substituted methanes. You see that one. There are four groups occupying the four valencies of carbon. So we have a carboxyl group, amino group, then hydrogen group, and also a variable group simply designated as R. So if you are taking glycine, we have, for example, the R group is nothing but hydrogen. If you are taking alanine, the R group is nothing but methyl. If you are taking serine, it is an ethyl group. So this is what is called the variant group. So the R group only differs in different types of amino acids. So we have four groups attached to what is called the alpha carbon atom. This is the simplest structure. So the simplest amino acid is the glycine. So having only just what is called the hydrogen group in place of that R, and all of the groups are common. And some amino acids have two amino groups, and some amino acids have two carboxyl groups. Accordingly, we can say acidic amino acids, also, for example, basic amino acids, etc. We'll see one by one later. Now, the carbon atom is normally asymmetric in nature. So, because of the presence of this asymmetric carbon atom, actually, all amino acids exist in optically just active forms. All amino acids are optically active. But the glycine is optically inactive. All amino acids, because of the presence of asymmetric carbon atoms, are optically active, excepting the glycine, which is optically inactive. So this is one question. Remember that one of all the 20 amino acids, only one is optically inactive, particularly the simplest amino acid, glycine. So it has two properties. One, simplest amino acid having that hydrogen in that R group, and secondly, it is optically inactive. Now, types of amino acids. So, based on the nature of the requirement, whether it can be just normally added to the diet, whether it can be just synthesized by the body or not. So, accordingly, we can classify the amino acids into different types. We can classify the amino acids into different types. Basically, there are two different types of amino acids according to one, whether they can be synthesized or not, or to be added to the diet or not. So, accordingly, just to be calm. So, we have two different types of amino acids. One, essential amino acids, and two, non-essential amino acids. So, what do you mean by essential amino acids? Those amino acids which we cannot synthesize are called simply the essential amino acids. Those amino acids which cannot be synthesized by a body are called essential amino acids. So, for that, they should be added to the diet. They should be added to the diet. Such amino acids are called essential amino acids. Altogether, out of the 20 different amino acids found in protein, 8 of them are considered as essential amino acids. They should be added to the diet. They cannot be prepared by the body. So, cannot be synthesized, supplied through diet. We have 8 amino acids, for example, valine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, just phenylalanine, tryptophan, and threonine. So these are all the different types of amino acids. Altogether, the total number is 8 that can be just supplied only through the diet, that cannot be prepared by the body. The remaining 12 amino acids are called non-essential amino acids. And those amino acids which can be synthesized by our body from some other compounds. are called non-essential, so that they should not be added, need not be added to the diet. So such amino acids which are not added, which are actually not required through diet, are called non-essential amino acids. Totally, we have 12 different types of amino acids coming under this category because we have totally 20, out of which 8 are essential amino acids. The remaining 12 are not essential. I mentioned here, for example, alanine, proline, tyrosine. Just we have, for example, glutamic acid, aspartic acid, so etc. And this category, just I have given two amino acids specifically, yellow in color, I represented. One is arginine, another one histidine. The letters within the brackets normally the code letter for each amino acid. Because while we are making the database, for example, protein data bank or bioinformatics, while making the database, we are representing only the form of sequence of letters one, just like a beads in a string. Just like a beads in a string, we are representing only the letters. So the code letter may be a single letter, or in some cases we are using three-letter code. For example, serine SCR, proline PRO, tyrosine TYR, arginine ARG. So either a single letter code or actually three-letter code can be used for while representing actually the sequence of amino acids in a protein while storing in a database. So that's why I've given some of the letters inside, and that is a code letter for each amino acid. So out of these 12 amino acids, I mentioned just histidine, arginine. These amino acids may or may not be synthesized because when there is a need, only they can be synthesized. All other times they should be added to the diet. So anyway, these two are called semi-indispensable amino acids. But as per the syllabus, we have 12 amino acids are non-essential amino acids and only 8 of them are essential amino acids. Remember those numbers for the question point of view or examination point of view. Now, according to the nature of the R group, I mentioned all of the R group varies. There may be many amino acids. There are a number of amino acids in nature. But as per the protein is concerned, we have in the proteins only restricted number of amino acids, just 21. Though we have different R groups, accordingly we have different types of amino acids in nature. But only 20 of them are found in proteins. So we can say only 20 different types of amino acids. Though we have different R groups in different types of amino acids leading to the formation of different amino acids in nature. So in proteins, only 20 are incorporated. I mentioned already, the R group varies, the variable group. It may be hydrogen group in the case of glycine, or it may be in the form of methyl group in the case of alanine, or in the form of ethyl group in the case of serine, etc. So we have different variable groups just in addition to the constant groups like hydrogen carboxyl group as well as the amino group. Now here is a picture. You see that on the chart showing the different types of all the 20 different types of amino acids. So some of the amino acids are actually non-polar and aliphatic R groups. Non-polar aliphatic R groups. The examples being glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, methionine, just actually also isoleucine. So here you have just this one part being shaded, and that is the R group. So in the case of you see that one alanine methyl group, hydrogen in the case of glycine. So valine you have just a double methyl, also just actually hydroxyl group. So like that only the R group varies. So such amino acids altogether 6. They are called non-polar aliphatic R group amino acids. So the R group is non-polar in nature, aliphatic. In some amino acids, you see that one again non-polar, but they have aromatic R group. So only in 3 amino acids we have aromatic R group. For example, phenylalanine, tryptophan, and tyrosine. So these are the only 3 different types of amino acids having aromatic R group. So non-polar aromatic R group. So we have altogether 6 aliphatic and 3 aromatic. So this is a question, remember that one. So which one of the following amino acid has no aromatic R group? Tryptophan, you have tyrosine, and also phenylalanine. So both are the precursors for the formation of melanin pigment. So human melanin pigment is actually formed from tyrosine, or from starting point phenylalanine. Even also the thyroxine hormone. The precursor amino acid for the formation of thyroxine hormone is also tyrosine only. So we have aliphatic and aromatic, just actually all group amino acids, just but non-polar. And likewise, some of the amino acids are polar in nature and actually they are uncharged. Here they represented 6 types of amino acids. They're all polar, just actually they're all uncharged without any charge. For example, serine, threonine, cytosine, then we have proline, asparagine, and glutamine. So these are all amino acids normally polar in nature. They are polar group, and also that is the R group is actually uncharged. Then we have also 2 more groups. One is positively charged R group, another one is negatively charged R group. For example, both are actually polar. So this one is positively lysine, arginine, and histidine. So these are all called the basic amino acids. They are positively charged. They are having positively charged R group. These are all examples for basic amino acids. And likewise, the R group is also in the form of actually negatively charged R group, aspartate, that is aspartic acid, glutamic acid. So these 2 are examples for acidic amino acids. So these are all acidic amino acids. These are all the basic amino acids. So these are all positively charged. These are all negatively charged. Now, in the case of nucleic acids, you know that one protein by name histone. So the gene is nothing but a nucleoprotein formed of DNA plus histone protein. So normally DNA is a negatively charged molecule, but the histone protein is a positively charged molecule. This is because of the high concentration of positively charged lysine and then histidine. Sorry, means lysine and arginine. So lysine and arginine are the 2 basic amino acids, positively charged amino acids found in genes. That is why there is an integration. So the DNA is a negatively charged one, whereas we see the histone protein formed of these basic amino acids like lysine, arginine. So they are positively charged. That is why there is a compactness, interaction between the DNA and then the protein together form the nuclear protein, what we call this one the gene, the hereditary unit. So these are all some of the nature related to the amino acids. So some amino acids are having aliphatic R group, some amino acids are having aromatic R group, some are having positively charged one, they are basic, some are negatively charged, and they're all considered as acidic amino acids. And likewise also, some of them are uncharged R group. So an example of serine, threonine, cysteine, and also proline, asparagine, and glutamine. So these are all some of the methods we are classifying the amino acids into different categories. So we have adapted different methods for the classification of amino acids. We'll proceed further. I'll give more information about these amino acids. Now, most of the naturally occurring amino acids are L amino acids. So the L amino acids are considered as a naturally occurring amino acids. You can say either way. So most of the naturally occurring amino acids are L amino acids based on their isomerism, and therefore L amino acids are considered as the natural amino acids. You can remember this word also. All amino acids are L amino acids. All naturally occurring amino acids are L amino acids. Then we can have different types of proteins based on the functional aspects, not based on the structural aspects. The proteins are classified in different types based on the functions. Number 1, structural proteins. They form the structural component of a living cell. For example, you have the connective tissue. There you have collagen fibers or elastic fibers or keratin, a kind of fibrous protein which make up, for example, the skin epithelium. So, the structural proteins, they form the basic structural component of a particular cell. Say an example of keratin, the one which is found in the nail as well as in the hair. So hair and nail are the structures. Then elastin, a kind of fiber found even in the connective tissue of the blood vessels, or in the case of elastic cartilage. Collagen, a kind of fibrous protein formed in the fibrous cartilage. We are going to study later in histology. So some of the proteins form the basic structural component of a particular structure. And say an example of elastin, a kind of elastic fiber, keratin, a kind of fibrous protein, collagen, also a kind of fibrous protein. So these proteins normally form the intercellular ground substance. And out of these proteins, the major protein that is normally found abundant in the human body is nothing but the collagen. Collagen is the most abundant structural protein present in our body. Nearly about one third of the protein found in the body is of collagen. That is why given there is nearly 33% of the abundant protein in our body is nothing but collagen. Don't forget this statement also. Though we have different types of structural proteins, the most important, the most abundant structural protein is nothing but the collagen. It constitutes about nearly 33%. See, when a person is attaining old age, you know that when the skin becomes wrinkled. What is the reason for that one? Normally, the skin is attached to the muscles by means of these collagen fibers in bundles. It is normally in taut condition or just in stiff condition. When the person is attaining old age, there is a loss of tension in the collagen fibers, or simply the collagen fiber loses its tension, releasing the tension on the skin so that the skin becomes wrinkled. So the main reason for the wrinkled face or the wrinkled skin in the case of any human body is because of the loss of tension of the collagen fibers while attaining age. So the abundant protein is nothing but the collagen. Then functional proteins. Here the proteins are doing some functions, particularly the enzymes and hormones are examples of functional proteins. So out of the enzymes, what we have either in the plant body or the animal body, one type of enzyme is most abundant in the whole of biosphere. The most abundant enzyme is nothing but riboscope. The most abundant enzyme is nothing but riboscope. So ribulose, bisphosphate, carboxylase, oxygenase. That is the most abundant enzyme. The most abundant protein also we can say. The whole of biosphere. If we are taking all the animals and plants together comparatively, and which is the most abundant protein in all organisms in the whole biosphere, it is nothing but the enzyme riboscope, a kind of protein. So ribulose, bisphosphate, carboxylase, oxygenase, the one which is taking part in all that one in the dot reaction. So the most abundant protein in the whole of biosphere. Another enzyme we have GLUT, glucose transporter. Glucose transporter, not transfer, glucose transporter enzyme, a type 4. So it is normally insulin just related mediated enzyme. So it is responsible for the transfer of glucose into the cells under the influence of the insulin hormone. That is why this is actually insulin mediated enzyme responsible for the transfer of glucose into the cell, for the conversion of glucose into glycogen. It is most abundant particularly in the liver cells and also in the adipose cells, where only you know that when the excess of glucose is being converted and stored in the form of glycogen. If there is no ultimate place in the case of, for example, liver and muscles, the extra glucose being converted into fat and stored in the adipose tissue. And that function of transfer of glucose or transport of glucose from the blood either into the liver cells or into the adipose tissue is brought about by this enzyme that is GLUT, glucose transporter enzyme. It is normally insulin mediated enzyme. It is working under the influence of actually insulin hormone. So these are some of the examples of enzymes coming under the category of functional enzymes, category of functional proteins. Still, some other proteins are acting as hereditary proteins. You know that one gene is what I mentioned. A gene is nothing but a nuclear protein. It's a combination of histone protein, a basic protein, plus the negatively charged DNA molecule. So that's why it's called hereditary protein because it makes up the gene. And also we have another protein, what's called repressor protein. It's a kind of protein normally taking part in gene regulations, repressing the activity. Just we will be studying later in the lack hormone system, one repressor protein produced by the regulator gene that suppresses normally or just actually suppresses the activity of the promoter gene, or we have for example operator gene to do the activity. So anyway, these are all the proteins related to the genes or chromosomes, hence called hereditary proteins concerned with some character transmission. And we have certain proteins which give protection against the invading microorganisms. And these proteins are called protective proteins. For example, immunoglobulins, antibody, and interferons, antiviral protein. So interferon is an example for antiviral protein working against the viruses. And immunoglobulins are antibodies which give resistance against infectious agents to us. So that's why they're called protective proteins. And thirdly, transport protein. We know that one hemoglobin is responsible for the transport of oxygen from the lungs towards the tissues. That's why it's called as actively a transport protein. And that to albumin, a kind of protein found in the serum or plasma, commonly known as serum albumin, which is responsible for the transport of certain actually materials throughout the circulatory system. Hence, these two are an example for that is transport protein. Now, in the muscles, the mechanism of muscle contraction is because of the presence of four types of proteins: actin, myosin, troponin, tropomyosin. So here I mentioned two types of major muscle proteins. They are all responsible for the contraction of the muscle, hence called as contractile proteins. So they are responsible for the shortening of the muscle. So the contractile proteins, main contractile proteins are actin and myosin, along with some other proteins we have later, and the contraction stage or contraction of the muscle syllabus, that is troponin and tropomyosin. Now, so far we have classified the proteins into different types based on their functions. Now, what are the major functions normally performed by the proteins? What is the role? So these proteins are normally responsible for the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane between the two cells. So they're responsible for the transport between the two cells. And also you know that when most of the proteins act as catalysts, creating chemical reactions in the animal body or in the plant body. So they are considered as a biochemical catalyst because almost 100% of enzymes are exclusively proteins. No other components are taking part in the formation of enzymes. So enzymes are purely proteins. And in some cases, you know that some of the hormones also proteinases in nature. For example, there is growth hormone, or we have ACTH hormone, or we have, for example, thyroxine hormone, an amino acid derivative, oxytocin, vasopressin. These are all actually the protein hormones. So some of the hormones are actually proteinaceous. So that is why they are the constituent of most of the hormones. Some of the hormones are, you know, the one steroids in nature. So other than these hormones, most of the hormones are made up of only proteins. Then, actually, we need an optimum pH of 7.35 to 7.45 in the blood. That is the optimum pH in the blood, 7.35 to 7.45. And such a pH is maintained because of acid-base balance. So the acid-base balance is also maintained by some of the plasma proteins. So acid-base balance of the blood is actually maintained because of certain factors along with the plasma proteins. It is also one of the functions of plasma proteins in maintaining the acid-base balance. And also I mentioned already we have based on the structure, based on the functions. Some of the proteins are helping us to fight against the invading microorganisms. They are considered as what are called the protective proteins. They are nothing but the immunoglobulins, and that is a chemical nature of antibody. So antibodies, what we have in the body to protect us against the invading microorganisms, are nothing but chemically immunoglobulins, a kind of protein. So these are some of the specific functions. I have limited only specific functions, not many functions. Mostly all proteins are active catalysts. And secondly, they are all protective in nature. These are the two major functions. And other functions are also being performed by the proteins in order to maintain homeostasis of the body. Now, and altogether we have to just collectively, comprehensively to say something about the properties of amino acids. So far we studied differently. Collectively we can say what are the important properties of amino acids, the physical properties or chemical properties altogether. I mentioned already all amino acids are optically active because of the presence of asymmetric carbon atoms, excepting glycine. So glycine is normally optically inactive. Optically, just optically just excepting glycine, all amino acids are optically active. So glycine is optically inactive. Then the amino acids are considered as alpha-steric compounds because they have an acidic group, namely the carboxyl group, and also an amino group, the basic group. Just because of the possession of these two groups, they behave like an acid and a base. Such compounds are called alpha-steric compounds as they have simply the carboxyl group, the acidic group, and amino group, the basic group. Then, under different actually solutions, they exhibit different property. We can have different types of amino acids. I'll come to this later. Now, we can also have the classification based on the number of carboxyl groups and number of amino groups possessed by the amino acids. So, according to the number of amino groups and the carboxyl groups, we can classify the amino acids into three major types. One, I mentioned already the acidic amino acids like glutamic acid, aspartic acid. Then the basic amino acids, for example, arginine, lysine, even histidine also. In the table, what is see the picture, the structural nature of the different amino acids altogether 20. Now the arginine, lysine, you know that one they possess positive charges, and these are all the basic amino acids. Now these neutral amino acids, the line, glycine. So these are all the different, even methionine. These are all the neutral amino acids. So this is based on the number of amino groups and carboxyl groups. The amino acids may be acidic amino acids or basic amino acids or neutral amino acids. Also, the amino acids are classified what are represented in the flow chart or just the structural aspect of the amino acids. Aliphatic amino acids like glycine, leucine, isoleucine, serine, etc. And aromatic amino acids of only three types. One, tryptophan, another one, tyrosine, the third one, phenylalanine. So the first amino acid which was normally disappeared was nothing but phenylalanine 1. The first amino acid which was disappeared, which was normally identified, was nothing but phenylalanine. So only three amino acids have the aromatic actually the OR group. So tyrosine, tryptophan, and then phenylalanine. So this classification is based on the presence of aliphatic or aromatic groups or groups. So the particular property of this amino acid is actually they have the ability, what ability? Ionizable nature of amino and carboxyl groups. So they form ions. So because of the ionizable nature of amino and carboxyl groups, we have formed different types of amino acids. The structure of the amino acid has also been changed in different kinds of solutions having different pHs, either in acidic solution or in basic solutions or alkaline solutions or in what is called a solution of neutrality. So, and this is because of one of the ionizable nature, either this carboxyl group or the amino group form ions. As a result, we have received structural changes in the amino acids leading to the formation of three different types of amino acids, either acidic amino acids or basic amino acids or Zwitter ionic forms. Let's see now. So in solution of different pHs, what I mentioned, either in acidic or in basic or in neutral solutions, normally the structure of the amino acid changes. Let's see in the equations in the skeleton. See, under electrically neutral conditions, the amino group or set exists in what is called Zwitter ion amino acids. An amino acid possessing dual charges, both positive and negative charges. And such a form is called Zwitter ionic form. Such amino acids are called Zwitter amino acids. And that state is called Zwitter ion state. So an amino acid possessing dual actually charges or double charges, both positive and negative charge. When it is normally placed in a neutral solution or electrically neutral conditions, pH is normally neutral. When normally in acids, when the amino acids in acidic solutions, they assume positive charge. In acids, it forms positive charge. When the same amino acid plays in alkali, it possesses negative charge. So, under neutral pH, it is in the form of Zwitter ionic form. In acidic pH, it is in the form of what is called actually possessing a positive charge amino acid. And in the case of alkalis, when amino acid is placed, it possesses what is called a negative charge. So we'll see the skeleton. And the first one is see that one, you have a positive charge. This is a positively charged amino acid. The normal amino acid, you know that one I mentioned already. So this is a simple amino acid having a carboxyl group and an amino group. This is a normal amino acid. So when placed in an acid, now what will happen? Just we see that one the charge changes. We have just because of the high concentration of hydrogen ions. Now this amino acid is called acidic amino acid. When the same amino acid is placed, for example, in alkali, see that one, it possesses a negative charge. So this is in alkali. And when actually in a solution of neutrality, see that one, it possesses both positive and negative charges. And such forms are called Zwitter ion forms. So in acids, it possesses a positive charge. In alkali, it possesses a negative charge. When placed in a solution of neutrality, it possesses both positive and negative charges. So this is what is happening. So such forms are called Zwitter ions, Zwitter ionic amino acids, Zwitter ion amino acids, possessing both positive and negative charges. So this is what is happening, change in structure of the amino acids while placed in different solutions of having different pHs. Now, so let us come to the structure of protein. So we can say actually structure of proteins with reference to the configuration. So the protein configuration varies in different types of proteins. According to the protein configuration, so normally the protein configuration is due to the amino acid side chains. Some of the amino acid side chains possess what is called neutral charges, attracting the electrons. Some of them possess what is called negative charges. Some others are actually possessing what is called non-polar hydrophobic charges. So like that we have, based on the amino acid side chains, we have formed different types of proteins. Altogether, there are 4 different configurations of proteins. One, a primary structure, another one, a secondary structure, third one, a tertiary structure, and the fourth one, quaternary structure. These are all the 4 different protein configurations. The arrangement of just what we have, the amino acids we have. So here I represented all the 4 types. You see that one in the first type, we can have a specific sequence of amino acids in a linear fashion. So here the amino acids are joined either by means of peptide bond arranged in a linear sequence, then it's called a primary structure. And in some cases, now this sequence, what we have a thread-like protein, becomes actually folded to form a helical structure. This is what is called alpha helix. Or it may be in the form of sheet, what is called beta sheet. So like that. See, and this is what is called the linear arrangement of the sequence of amino acids representing the primary structure. If it is folded to form what is called helix or in the form of sheet, it is called secondary structure. When we have, for example, both these helices and then what is called the secondary structures folded upon themselves, just like what is called a woolen ball, giving a ball-like structure, a 3D structure, that is called as a tertiary structure. We'll give more information about this later. And sometimes what we have, a protein being formed of more than one units, more than one subunits, what we can say more than one polynucleotides. In such cases, we can have what is called the quaternary structure. Now in detail, we'll see the pictures. Now the primary structure. I mentioned already the arrangement of amino acids in specific sequence. And that one gives information about the positions of the amino acids. So that gives positional information of the amino acids. So that is what we have, the linear arrangement of amino acids one after another to form a long thread of protein that is nothing but a polypeptide without any folding. And that specific sequence in a linear fashion is called what is known as the primary structure. That gives what is called the positional information in a protein. Suppose in, for example, in a primary structure, normally the left end, we can say the left end, is called or represented by the first amino acid. And where you have a free amino group, that is why it's called N-terminal amino acid. So the left end is represented by the first amino acid, where you have the free amino group, that's why it's called N-terminal amino acid. Then The right end is normally represented by an amino acid with a free carboxyl group, and that is also the last amino acid. Suppose you're taking 100 amino acids, suppose 1 to 100. Here we have the N terminal having the free amino group, and the last one, the last amino acid is actually represented by an amino acid with a free carboxyl group. So this is called N terminal amino acid, the first amino acid. The last amino acid in a polypeptide chain is called C terminal amino acid having a free carboxyl group. So that is what we have in the primary structure, the specific sequence. You see that one. I mentioned already, this is the right end, maybe for example the G. This is what is called C terminal amino acid, and this A is represented by N terminal amino acid. So the left end is represented by the first amino acid, and the right end is represented by the last amino acid, where you have a free carboxyl group, and here we have a free amino group. That is why it's called N terminal amino acid, and that one is called C terminal amino acid. So here I represented nothing but A, B, C, D, E, F. Each one is representing an amino acid. The sequence is that one. There are sequence of amino acids in a primary polypeptide chain. Now here just actually represented the primary structure. See, it is a long chain. Though here it is represented just like a folding, it is not folded. It's a long chain without any folding. So this is N terminal. For example, here we have this N terminal. That is nothing but right. And in the case of C terminal, we have glutamic acid. So this is what is called the upstream, and that is what is called the downstream. So normally the upstream is represented by -1, -2. So N -1 and -2 representing the upstream. And the downstream we have N plus 1, N plus 2. The same arrangement can also be seen in the case of, for example, the DNA molecule. While the transcription process has been normally made, we'll be studying later about a molecular basis of inheritance. So anyway, so we are representing actually upstream and then downstream. Towards the right side, it is called downstream. So we have plus, and then towards upstream, we are representing in the form of just actually -1, -2. So this is a midpoint possibly in the amino acid. If you have 100 amino acids, and this is N -2, for example, here the 50th element, and that one is the 50th element. But that is actually the downstream amino acid. This is what is called upstream amino acid. So this is the structure what we have. I mentioned already we can use either a single letter code or a 3-letter code. But in the 3-letter code also we can have the first letter is capital letter and the remaining two are just the small letters. Now this is once again representing only the primary structure. The first one I represent the primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary and also quaternary. You see that one, a sequence of amino acids. Here a 3-letter code is used for the amino acid. So just asparagine, glycine, phenylalanine, etc. They are arranged in a specific sequence. Suppose this is the N terminal, the first amino acid, and this is what we have the C terminal, the last amino acid. Now secondary structure. Sometimes what will happen, the protein thread is folded in the form of what is called helices. So you see that one we have the helix. So the helical arrangement. The amino acid thread, or sorry, the protein thread is folded in the form of a helix or in the form of a sheet. So now the helical structure is called alpha helix. The sheet is called the beta sheet. And both alpha helices and beta sheets represent the secondary structure. The linear chain gets folded to form a helix that is called alpha helix, or the amino acids are arranged together to form sheets because of the bonding of different actually the bonds, and that resulted in the formation of what is called a beta sheet. So both alpha helices and beta sheet together represent what is called the secondary structure. While forming a helix, it is always found to occur only towards the right-handed direction. So we have right-handed helix rather than a left-handed helix during the formation of the secondary structure. Now, the next one is the tertiary structure. So what is happening? Just imagine that like a woolen ball being formed of, you know that one, the filament which is being folded. So sometimes what will happen, the thread is folding upon itself. The entire thread of what is called the primary structure is folded upon itself, just like a woolen ball, like a ball, a thread ball or a woolen ball. And that one gives what is called a tertiary structure. It is nothing but normally the primary structure, the secondary structure, all being folded upon just actually themselves to form a woolen ball or a thread ball. And that one gives the tertiary structure. And this tertiary structure is nothing but the 3D forms of a protein. And normally, most of the proteins exist only in 3D forms. That is why the 3D form is absolutely necessary for the biological activities of a protein. So most of the proteins exist only tertiary forms, and the tertiary form is the most biologically active form of protein. That is why most of the proteins exist only in the form of what is called tertiary protein or 3D. So the 3D forms represent the tertiary structure. The beta sheet and the alpha helix represent the secondary structure. The linear arrangement represents the what is called the primary structure. Now the quaternary structure. The next, the quaternary structure. So this is the diagram representing what is called the tertiary structure. Here you see then a number of alpha helices, alpha 1, alpha 2, just beta 1, beta 2 like that. So they represent the different beta sheets, and then alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4, they represent the helices. So both the beta sheets and alpha helix combine together to form what is called a Willen-Bohr-like structure, and that one is the tertiary structure. Here also we have the N terminal, also C terminal. Here you see that one. This is the N terminal, the first amino acid. The C terminal, that is the last amino acid at the right hand side. So just until they are falling upon itself to form what is called the ball. Now here is a part. You see that one. This is a simple primary structure, and now and that is the once the primary structure gets folded like a helix, then it is called the secondary structure. Now this one represents the secondary structure. And here you see that one the helices as well as the sheets combine together to form what is called a tertiary structure. It is nothing but a cartoon showing just simply the secondary and tertiary structures. Now the quaternary structure. Sometimes a protein is being formed of more than one polypeptide or more than one subunits. And these subunits are normally arranged with respect to each other. For example, in the form of linear string of spheres. And these spheres are arranged one above the other, just like what is called a cube or in the form of plate. And such a structure is called quaternary structure. So a quaternary structure is one where you have a protein is nothing but an assembly of a number of what is called units, more than one more than one poly, just a peptide unit or subunits. So in such a manner they are arranged. So they're all arranged with respect to each other, just like for example linear string of spheres. So here the spheres are arranged one above the other to form a cube or a plate. Example, in the case of hemoglobin, the one which is responsible for the transport of oxygen, it is formed of what is called a heme part, a ring compound, and also a globin part. So it is formed of a ring compound, what is called porphyrin ring, having iron, to which attached there are 4 subunits. So there are 4 subunits in a hemoglobin molecule. We have 2 alpha and 2 beta, 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains. So now here represent this is 1 and this is 2 and this is 3 and this is 4. So there are 4 polypeptide subunits. 2 of them are called alpha subunits and 2 of them are called beta subunits. So this is what we have adult hemoglobin, which is being represented by the formula HbA. In the case of fetal hemoglobin, it is called F. We have 2 alpha chains instead of beta chains, 2 gamma chains. But in all amino acids, actually in all hemoglobin molecules, we have nearly 586 amino acids. 586. The alpha chain is formed of 146 amino acids. The beta chain is formed of 147 amino acids. Altogether 2 into 146, 2 into 147. You have 586 amino acids. Either in the case of that is what is called hemoglobin A, adult hemoglobin, or in the case of fetal hemoglobin, we have the same number of amino acids, but only the sequence being changed. So the alpha chains are common to both, but in the case of fetal hemoglobin, instead of that is what we have the beta chain, and that is we have that is gamma chain. That is the only difference. So anyway, we have actually these are all the tertiary structure formed of normally more than one polypeptide units and arranged one above the other to form a cube or to form a plate. Example, the best example we have hemoglobin. That is an example for a quaternary structure. So these are some of the things related to what we have the biomolecules. So far we have completed the various components, the various types of biomolecules like carbohydrates, the proteins, the lipids, and also the nucleic acids to some extent. So with this I conclude that is the biomolecules. I would like to proceed another chapter that is related to physiology, the respiratory system.